And we are recording this, and by Monday, if you checked in our first module, you'll see that session 1 has been uploaded. It has all the captions, so you can always go back and review those up there. But this is our Google Certification Level 1, Session 2. We are going to go over Units 2 and Units 3. And then we will leave the session and be finishing up Units 4 and 5. So let's go into our first session. And this is what is computational thinking. Darcy, you want to take this off?
Yeah, I'm just going to let you keep sharing the screen. I'll tell you when to advance. Does that work for you?
Perfect.
All right. So one of the things with this course is that you are getting STEM hours for the time that you're here. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to have a STEM focus for each of our live sessions, and then we'll send you out to do that work in between with a STEM focus, some questions and some things to keep in mind. But as an overall overarching idea, we want to keep this idea of computational thinking in mind. Computational thinking is a set of problem-solving skills that tackles complex tasks. This is design thinking. This is engineering. It takes complex problems and it breaks it down into smaller parts. It's about identifying problems and formulating solutions, and it can be done with or without a computer. Now, I am an English teacher at heart. However, I have STEM majors in my family, STEM majors in my household. Let me tell you, computational thinking is the area of STEM that can go across multiple different disciplines. And as an English teacher, I use computational thinking almost every day in my classroom. It's one of those things that I use that concept almost every day in real life. And as we start talking about it, you'll see how it fits into multiple different pieces. All right, next slide, please. So with computational thinking, there are 4 main parts. The first part is decomposition, taking a complicated problem and breaking it down into components and working on pieces, one piece at a time. For example, in the English classroom, the writing process, the scientific process, taking a big project that you've got going on with your students and breaking it down into the most essential elements that you have. The next piece is abstraction, which is taking all of the pieces and stripping away the specifics to find a generic solution. This is the focusing on what's essential and stripping away and taking the fluff out. This is really important in all content areas, helping students get that idea of what's the most important piece that I need to pay attention to. In math story problems, what's the pieces that are really most essential to solving this problem, and what else is just kind of throwing me off? The third piece is pattern recognition, and this is analyzing the trends in data and leveraging that to inform solutions. For example, in our course right now, you're going through a number of different platforms in Google. One of the patterns that you should notice is that each of the different icons in each of the different applications are the same. If you want to insert a picture, that picture icon is the same across all platforms. If you want to add something new, that plus button shows up in Forms, Classroom, Slides, everything. So those ideas, okay, here's a pattern. If I know in this application, it helped me insert a picture. So I wonder if it's going to do the same thing. Yeah, it is. So identifying those patterns. How did I solve a problem before? And can I use that same solution to help solve it another way? And then finally, that algorithmic thinking. Designing a well-defined series of steps to achieve a desired outcome. If you're a classroom teacher, you go through this computational thinking every single day when you start tackling a lesson. What is it that what's the big problem? What is it that I want my kids to know? What's the most important pieces? What are some patterns or some things that I can give them? How are my students answer? What are some common misconceptions? And then finally, what are the steps that I'm going to develop in my lesson plan to help my students achieve success? We all use computational thinking, and we're going to have this overall view of computational thinking as we go through the entire course to keep that idea of that engineering and design thinking. Okay, Ethan, next slide. So we have a short video here. Ethan, I don't know, do you have it maximized for?
Imagine you're asked.
Yep.
Okay.
Would you like me to play the video?
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
Awesome. So I'm going to make this bigger. I'm going to share this screen. And we will play.
To solve a complex problem. And to make things
Can
even
everyone
more
hear this?
challenging, you cannot use the tools you normally use to help solve the problem. Sounds pretty difficult, right? Without a strategy, it certainly would be. Today, we are going to demonstrate a common process for solving complex problems known as computational thinking. Computational thinking is the thought process involved in formulating a problem and expressing its solution in such a way that a computer, human, or machine can effectively carry it out. Computational thinking involves 4 steps. Step 1 of the computational thinking process is decomposition. Decomposition involves breaking a complex problem down into smaller, more manageable parts. For example, take this math problem. Find the sum of all numbers between 1 and 200. How can we break this problem down into smaller equations? 1 plus 2 equals 3. 3 plus 4 equals 7. 5 plus 6 equals 11. 7 plus 8 equals 15. This is going to take forever, and it's really hard to keep track of in your head. There's got to be a better way. Let's try a different set of combinations. 200 plus 1 equals 201. 199 plus 2 equals 201. 198 plus 3 equals 201, etc. Step 2 of the computational thinking process is pattern recognition. Identifying patterns or trends within a problem. Let's return to the problem we started in step 1. Find the sum of all numbers between 1 and 200. What pattern do we see here? If we take the sum of the high number and the low number, we get 201. And all the other pairs have the same sum. We need to figure out how many times the 201 pattern repeats.
200.
You could count all the pairs, which would take a long time, or take the high number and just divide it by 2. 200 divided by 2 equals 100 pairs. If the sum of each pair is 201 and we have 100, we can determine the sum of all numbers between 1 and 200. Step 3 of the computational thinking process is abstraction. Abstraction suggests we identify specific similarities and differences among similar problems to work toward a solution. In our original problem, we had to find the sum of all numbers between 1 and 200. Let's look for similarities and differences. All the pairs have the same sum, so we can get rid of these. Now, if we focus only on the important details, we see that we can express the problem as an equation. 200 plus 1 tells us the sum of each pair. 200 divided by 2 tells us the number of pairs. Multiply them together, and we find that the sum of all numbers between 1 and 200 is 20,100. The fourth and final step of the computational thinking process is algorithm design. Algorithm design involves developing step-by-step instructions for solving the problem, which you can use again to solve similar problems. In our original problem, we had to find the sum of all numbers between 1 and 200. Step 1, find the sum of 200 plus 1. 200 plus 1 equals 201. Step 2, find the quotient of 200 divided by 2. 200 divided by 2 equals 100. Step 3, multiply the answers from step 1 and step 2 together. 201 times 100 equals 20,100. This algorithm can be used to find the sum of all numbers between 1 and any number. Let's see how it works with 1,000. Erase the 200s. Now find the sum of all numbers between 1 and 1,000. 1,000.
And I think we get the gist, and now we all want to teach math now, I'm sure, right? You want to get in that classroom and teach math. I'm seeing some head shaking. Darcy, you want to finish us off?
Absolutely. So we're going to send you out into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. And I want you to,
I'm kidding.
what
Sorry.
was that?
I said we're going to give you a bunch of math problems, but I was just kidding. We're not.
I put the links in the chat, or the questions in the chat, and I want you to talk about how are your students solving complex problems? And how are you using computational thinking as you go through this process? How are you taking this big concept of, okay, we got this big test and all these modules and everything. How am I going to break this down? And how are we as learners using computational thinking in our everyday lives? So think about some of those ideas. We don't have to be earth-shattering, but how are we using computational thinking every day? So Ethan, are you ready to send us out?
Absolutely. I'm creating the rooms now. They're all randomized. So make sure you turn on your cameras, introduce yourselves, and we're going to give you 10 minutes. So we'll call everyone back at 3:53.
Thank you.
The rooms are open. And if you are watching this video later, so you're on the Canvas course and you're watching this video, this would be a good time to pause the video and think about these questions to yourself and consider them and how they've impacted your classroom.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. I think, Ethan, I think we've got everybody in.
I think we are. We're ready to go. Did anyone, I just want to pause. Did anything great come up in your breakout rooms that anyone wants to share? Whole group? Go ahead. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Ethan in our group did such a great job breaking down that like process of like thinking. I think that he should take a minute and talk about it. Not to throw you under the bus or anything.
He's thrown under the bus. Let's go ahead and hear it. Who was it?
Ethan.
Not me, the other Ethan. Great name. Other Ethan. Let's go ahead and hear it.
Hold on, where is he? I'm not seeing him on here anymore. Did he fall out of the meeting?
He knew that you were going to throw him under the bus there, Hope.
Ah, not fair. He really did a great job of doing it. I don't have any classroom teaching experience, I'm from a behavioral health background, and he just did a really great job of like helping kids figure out that computational thinking process and organizing it into the steps to solve the problem. He explained it really well. I appreciated it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Hope, for sharing that. And when we get him back, we'll definitely have that shared whole group. So let's go ahead and move on. If anyone else has anything to add in, please feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. But we do want to address some questions that came up. So as you know, inside the Canvas course, and I do want to make this very clear, the 13 units that we're doing in the Google Fundamentals is not connected to the Canvas course. Right. I mean, it's all part of this cohort, but the grades that you're getting when you pass test on the Google Fundamentals will not port over and be shown on the Canvas course. So the Canvas course is really just to host our discussion, to upload our videos, to keep track of kind of the cohort as it goes along. And we had some really great questions on there. And so feel free to, for our next session, add your questions. And we want to cover 4 specific ones. So the 4 specific ones are right here. The first one we want to cover is there a quick link for Google Tools, or is this something that should be bookmarked? That's super important. We're definitely going to address that. Number 2 is how to join Google Educator Group. So we're going to show that. Number 3 has to do with a very common thing that we've experienced now that we've all gone virtual. And it's the idea that I'm sending a quiz out, or I'm sending some type of Google document, and my kids aren't accessing it. So I have to keep giving them permission. They keep requesting permission. So how can we work through that? And then finally is the idea about hitting F5 or maybe hitting Control U and seeing the source code and being able for students to be able to find the correct answer that way. So we're definitely going to talk about that. So first question is about Google Tools.
All right, so there's a picture on the screen there, and the waffle, which is this this tool right here, it looks like a grid. I call it a waffle, and I use it. I use the 3 straight lines. I call that the pancake menu. I call the grid the waffle menu. I'm a visual learner. In the classroom, I always use those terms, and it kind of clicked with the kids. It was like, okay, now I know where to go. So you're going to click on that waffle menu, and that's where you're going to get your Google Apps. If you are not signed in, that waffle menu may not show up. The other part of that is if you are not using Google Chrome as a browser, it won't show up. So make sure that you're using Google Chrome as a browser and that you are pulling up things from that Google app menu. I do, Ethan, would it be okay if I shared my screen real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. You can
okay.
Go ahead and take it over.
So one of the things that I did this past week is I took the test. And one of the things that I really want you to understand is how important it is to be able to access those things from this waffle. One of the things that is a beast in Google applications is the Google Drive. One tip that I can give you is when you open new applications, you see all these things, Google Forms, all these things. I could just open a doc from here if I wanted to. And it's going to store it in the general population of my Google Drive, which becomes a mess. A quick tip for organization of that is to go into your Drive first. Teach your students this, it'll save them a bunch of time. Go into your Drive and click on the folder that you want to put it in. And within that folder, that's where you're going to want to create a new document, slides, whatever. Because then it'll save it in this portion rather than in the general portion of your Drive. When you are talking about your Drive, and another first tip is when you're working with students, when they open up a Google Doc, always have them title it first. Because the great thing about Google is it saves everything. The bad thing about Google is it saves everything. So I'm going to be completely and totally transparent here. And I'm going to show you untitled. If I don't title something, it's going to go in this general form, general place, and I'm going to have all of these untitled things that I'm going to have to sift through to try and find the document that I forgot to title. If I've opened it within a folder, it makes those options for untitled much less. For example, I had my students make 6 folders for their classes, 1 for each class. If they were in English class, they opened it in the drive in the English folder. And then if they couldn't find it, if it was untitled, at least it was in the English folder. It eliminated about 20 to 30 minutes worth of searching for certain students. So just a Google tip there. But yes, the Google app, and remember to look at your avatar up here. Notice I have multiple different accounts here. I have different pictures on each account so that I can see which account I'm working in. If you are in a different account, it's going to have a different picture and it's going to have different permissions. I see something in here in the chat. Oh, I'm glad that you found that a great tip. That was a lifesaver for me and for my students, my own kids included.
And Darcy, just so if you want to open up that waffle, if there's any applications that you use more than the other, you can always click them and drag them up higher. So you can grab slides and pull it up. You can also go down. If you scroll down, you'll see more like Hangout or Photos. So you can organize your waffle as you would like to.
Now, notice that I have a couple things like Jamboard or a couple other things in here. Sometimes your Google District Administrator may not have those turned on, but that's okay. And when I'm talking about the applications and knowing that these icons mean the same thing, when you're taking the test, if they give you an application that you're not as familiar with, look back at those patterns. Look back at, okay, I know that in this app, this icon means insert a picture. So it's got to mean the same thing over here. Consider those patterns as you're going through that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that. Ethan, you are up.
Oh, sorry. And that's it's like we used to take our students and say, let me see your book bag, empty out your book bag, and we're going to reorganize this. Now we kind of have to work with our students and say, let me see your Google Drive, right? Let me open it up and let's reorganize this, similar to how we used to do. The second question was on Google Educator Group. So I do want to point this out. I'm going to share this link right here in the chat. This is a great link where you can join the Google Educator groups, and I'll kind of show what this looks like. Once you get to this website, it will look like this. All you got to do is click Find a Community. And this, as you scroll down, will pop up a map, right? And you actually want to go and click our map, and you're welcome to join a global community or any community you might want, but we actually have a Google Educator Group here in Washington. And when you click that, it will give you a nice little welcome. It will allow you to connect on Twitter. It will allow you to join the monthly meetings, but you're going to want to click Join the Discussion. And if you're familiar with Lori Curtis or Jeff Utek, they are the 2 moderators of this Google Educator Group. So all you would do is click Join Discussion, and then it will walk you through the steps to joining the group. It has a little forum right here. And when you click it, it'll actually prompt you, why do you want to join? And you can send an answer. So we did want to address the group. Any questions on joining an educator group? Okay.
All right. One of the other questions was sending a quiz to students and them not being able to access it. So there's a couple of reasons why that might happen. In our region, we have a couple of districts that have a different domain name than their students. So teachers have a different domain than their students. And sometimes sending it from that wrong domain, like I'm at esd105.org. I might have an esd105students.org. And if I send it from a different domain, it's not going to let them access it. Anytime that you are sending a Google product outside of your domain, or what they used to call the trust circle, it's going to require you to lift some restrictions. So in Google Forms, when you go to settings, which is in every application, it's the gear settings. So if you just want to pull up a form, there we go. And so that gear setting right there, everything, all applications have gear setting. So there's always a button that says restrict to users in new ESD 101 or ESD 105 or West Valley School District or wherever you're at. Uncheck that box and that will send it out. So make sure that it is not checked. Now, remember I said that Google saves everything? This is the one thing that it doesn't save. If you want to send it out, go down to the bottom. In the bottom right-hand corner is a button that says save. You have to click save to keep this option for your quiz. It's one of the very few things that Google does not automatically save. So just make sure that you're checking the domains and that box right there where it says require sign in, restrict it. If you don't want it restricted or if you're having issues with people getting access, then go ahead and uncheck that box. When you're sending it to parents, when you're sending it to teachers in other districts, if you're sending it to me or Ethan or anybody else, uncheck that box. All right, thanks.
Awesome, thank you. And if your email, the end of your email address is different than your student's email address, that usually happens. IT can fix that. So if you give them enough time, they can add those in, but, and that might be a discussion you want to have, but that's a good cover of that, Darcy. Okay, the last question, which is probably a really important question, is this idea, and there's tons of TikTok videos going around, and it's students looking at the source code. There's YouTube videos on all of that, and it's hilarious because it's made by students. They're doing computational thinking, which is great. Sorry, Bubba. Sorry, that's Ollie in the background.
Okay, so what happens is
we got this. I got it. He's just going to sit in the lap real quick. So we are going to hop into here real quick. I'm going to show you. So this is what happens. This is that sample test, right? That we were just diving into and we were editing the settings. So we have a sample test here, and what students can do is they can come when you've sent them a Google form, and I made this a quiz. Okay, so when I came over here and set it up, I went into settings and I marked it as a quiz, and that allowed me to put an answer key. Okay, so this is only works when you put an answer key. If you don't put an answer key, they're just sending responses, and when they look at the source code, they won't see anything. But when you do put an answer key, what students can do is they can come here and they can right click or double click, or if they're on Chromebooks, they push Control U. And what they're doing is they're viewing the page source. And this pops up a whole bunch of code, okay? Now, what happens is one of these lines of code, and it's always different, but one of these lines of code, and I'm just going to go Control Find, and I'm going to type in right answer up here, and I'm going to go search through this entire code. So as you can see, we see all of the answers here: wrong answer, null, null, false; wrong answer, null, null, false, false. They all say false. So that line of code says everything's false. But if I go to the next one, sometimes it will say it's true. Okay. And so what students can do is they can search through the listed answers, and they can try to find the one that says true. It will be in multiple places, just so it won't say, there's only one place that validates that answer as true, but it is something that students are doing. It's also a video that goes across. It doesn't always work. And there are some, like if you have multiple selected questions, it gets a lot harder from them to do. But if you have a basic one answer, multiple choice question, there is a way for them to go into the code. They would have to search, because if not, they're searching through all of this code, and this code's actually like super far to the left too. So you can kind of go all around, and it would be really difficult for them to find it in this. But if they do start control finding through the answers, they can pinpoint it that way. Okay. There are multiple videos on YouTube, and this one's hilarious because it's
Boy Wavy back with another video on hyper.
Boy Wavy back with another video, right? So we have like 12-year-olds making YouTube videos showing their friends how to do this. It does not always work. Sometimes everything will say false. So I just want to put that on your radar. Google knows about this as well. So they're doing stuff on the background to prevent cheating. Also, this works for every single quiz. It's not Google Forms. So if you have a virtual test on Schoology, if you're having a virtual test on Canvas, they'll be able to pull up the source code and same thing, find all the false ones and then find the one that says true, and that will be the correct answer. So I just want to on your radar.
It only does it for the multiple choice questions. You can put short answer questions in. It's not going to tell the answers for the short answer questions. Just a heads up, you know, really, John put in here, talk about working harder to cheat than they have to learn the material. Absolutely. But if you're seeing something like this show up on a screen, you know that person, that's what they're trying to do. So just a heads up, and maybe know that that particular student needs to have short answer questions rather than multiple choice or some other options. Or you send them over to Google and say, hey, I've got a great candidate for a future job.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too is if your students do have Chromebooks, inside Google Forms, they have to have Chromebooks. They can't use any other device. But if they do use Google Forms, you can, or a Google Chromebook, you can prevent them from opening any other tabs. So you can make a setting where they can't, and that's really helpful because when you open up the source code, it opens up in another tab. So it will prevent them from opening up the source code, but they have to be on a Chromebook in order to do that. Any questions on that?
Hi, Ollie.
Ollie, no questions?
Okay, thank you. So as we go into next week, so next week, you're going to be doing units 4 and 5. And as you go through those units, I want you to think about how can you be using these tools to solve complex problems? How are you as a learner using computational thinking as you go through this process? How can I use these products to increase efficiency? And how is this a 21st century work skill? I'm going to tell a quick story. I've got one college graduate. He's a STEM major, graduated with mathematical economics and a minor in computer science. Okay. His job right after school was a company decided that they wanted him. So they flew him to Florida for a kind of a 6-week, 8-week boot camp. This boot camp was not on tech skills. He had the tech skills. This boot camp was on efficiency. It was on working with other people. It was on communicating. It was on all of those, what we call soft work skills. Those are all 21st century work skills. And we can have all the great engineers and science and mathematicians in the world, but if they can't communicate that knowledge, it does nobody any good. And so think about how these tools help with that efficiency and communication and collaboration as 21st century work skills. Something to keep in mind. There are some examples in the fundamentals courses, so that have some examples from science and other STEM content areas. There's some math examples, some science examples. Pay special attention to those as you're going through. And then think about if you're not in a STEM, so if you're in a STEM class and you are teaching this content all the time, you've got an easy connection to say, okay, how can I use this in my class? If you're not, I want you to kind of keep that idea of computational thinking. How can we keep that idea and use these tools? How do we use this and get them in that mindset as they go through these tools and begin to work with other people? Ethan, can you pull up the Canvas course real quick? Or I can. All right, so if we go into our modules, I added a couple things down at the bottom. You'll see that there are additional resources. So that Google certification checklist, I did do an update this week. This week, tomorrow, hopefully, I'm going to start taking some of those skills that we have there and adding short videos, particularly like how to join an educator group, how to make a copy of a folder or create a folder. I'm gonna make some quick 30-second to 1-minute videos that you can click on and just have a quick demonstration of that so that you can use that as just another mode of learning. Another thing that I added into the course itself is a list of Google tips for when you're taking the test. So I took the test this week. You do sign the NDA, so I can't tell you what was on it, but I can give you some tips. So if you want to pull that up, Google certification tips. Relax. Deep breath, you'll be okay. I promise. I promise. There are 2 sections. There's the multiple choice, and that multiple choice looks a lot like those multiple choice questions that you're seeing right now. Looks a lot like it. And there's also some matching, and that matching is, here's a scenario, what tool is best? What tool does this? What tool does that? And you kind of drag and drop. The other part are scenarios, and Ethan had a great idea today. We are going to work on some scenarios and give you an idea of what that might look like. They're going to give you and say, hey, teacher X wants to do this. Go ahead and go into your Google Drive, create a calendar event. Okay, that's a scenario. That's part 1. They're going to set up a fake Google Drive for you and give you access to everything you need. All the contacts are already loaded in there. Everything is there. Just be familiar with finding things in Google Drive, and you'll be okay that way.
And Darcy, you said the scenarios took the longest amount of time, correct?
They did, just because there's 9 of them, and some of them have 4 to 5 parts. But the other part of that is they also give you, for the majority of the scenarios, they give you the text that you need to put into what they want you to create. Like if they said, create a Google Doc, they'll give you the text that they want you to put into it. They'll give you what they want you to do. Let's say they tell you to insert a table. You do that, you put the table in, but they'll put the text, what they want in each of the columns.
And you're not retyping the text, correct?
No, I am copying and pasting, and they are perfectly okay with that. They even give you an easy copy option. You know, where you see that button where it says copy, sometimes you want to copy a link. They provide it for you. Use it and use the keyboard shortcuts. Control-C for copy, Control-V for paste. It'll save you a bunch of time. So just get familiar with copy and paste. Pay attention to the directions. On the multiple choice, a lot of them ask you to choose multiple answers. That information is located at the top of the question screen. It's not right above the question. So take a moment to locate where that information is so that you can look there for each of your multiple choice questions. There are 20 of them, but they, like I said, they're very similar to what you're seeing right now in the fundamental practice units. Again, remember the icons and the functions across all of the platforms are very similar. Putting in a picture from multiple different putting in a picture in Google Slides is the same as it is in a Google Doc, as it is in a Google Forms, as it is in a Google Drawing. It's the same process. So remind yourself of that. If they say, hey, go make a Google site, and you're like, I don't have access to sites, you will for the test, but that process will be the same.
Darcy,
So just a heads up that way. Yes.
what if they're telling you to make a Google Doc, but you accidentally click Google Sites or Google Slides? Do you get penalized for that?
No, you do not get penalized for clicking a wrong button. They expect you to explore. They expect you to do a couple things, look at it a couple different ways. Let's say they want me to do something special in my calendar and I can't remember it because I don't have the muscle memory. I don't use that. Click on it, explore, you'll be okay. It's what gets done at the bottom. If you're worried about something being blocked on a personal computer, I take it on my home computer. You don't need to be signed into your district account. You actually won't be signed into any of your personal accounts. They'll have you sign out of all of your accounts. They'll give you an incognito window. And next week, I'll show you how to do that. And then just make sure that you have a place where you can take the test and not be interrupted. Phone out of the room. Shut the door, lock the door, find a quiet place. Do it Sunday morning if everyone is still in bed. Just take a deep breath and you'll be okay. And I got my results within about 20 minutes. So those tips are there for you. Ethan, anything in the chat or anything, or any other questions that we have?
Well, one asked if in the Canvas course, will this be available? Absolutely. And you'll see it continually updated. So, obviously you can't access the Canvas course while you're taking the test, but you will have access to it well beyond once we're done with the course. Yes, it is timed. We did get that question. You are given a total of 3 hours to complete it. Darcy, how long would you say it took you to complete it?
It took me about 2 hours.
Okay.
Now,
and more time.
And there was more time there. Again, that concept of copy and paste and not retyping everything saved me a bunch of time. And in the scenarios, the ones that I had, most of them had all of the text there for me. There were only a couple where they wanted me to actually create something based on information that they didn't give me.
Gotcha.
Great questions. I see one here about having check marks after completing each module and subsection. In Canvas, no.
Probably just because we added stuff to the modules, Ceci. That's probably the only thing that you're seeing like it unchecked, just because we've been adding to the modules. But don't worry, you don't need a bunch of check marks. And when the
Okay, I won't worry. I just wanted to make sure because I saw them initially and now they're gone. I just wanted to make sure with you guys. Thank you.
The one thing that we're looking for check marks is when you go through the fundamentals, it'll check mark when you've gone through each of the modules. Eventually, to show us that you've gone through the modules, we will want you to take a picture of that and send it to us. So that's the check marks that we're more worried about.
Yep. And that's, yeah, that's the last. So in order to get the live 1 hour sessions, we're going to send this attendance over. We have also been allowed, if you have to miss a session, you can watch the videos on the course. Obviously, there's a lot more value coming here. And then you will, in the very end, you will have to submit a screenshot of all 13 checked units in order to receive those 15 hours.
A question about first time through the test, it doesn't go as planned. Is one able to retake the test? Yes, you need to wait at least 14 days. I don't know if they charge you again. I don't know if each attempt is $10.
Well, Darcy, your first time you took it, you were interrupted, correct?
Right.
Did you have to pay another $10 to take it again?
I did, but I used a different address because I set up a different account.
Okay.
So I wasn't too worried about it. So that was on me. I should have probably tried the same account. Good question here. So I'm completing the mods online and attending class. What else am I to be doing? That is it right now. Right now, though, practice with the skills that are in the modules. Go through and get really comfortable with those Google apps. Reach out to Ethan or I if you have a question on an application. Make this workable and applicable to your current situation. I don't want you to create something that is not going to be usable. I want this to be applicable and beneficial. That's my whole goal. And Ethan's as well.
Absolutely. And I did get Rhonda sent me, she said, hi, can we at some point soon, Rhonda, you can unmute yourself. You're not seeing the modules on this dashboard?
Okay, I am unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I had like unit 1 and unit 8 or something, and I'm not finding everything that I'm seeing on your screen.
So are you logged in right now?
I will maybe, and I'm on 2 different devices, but I'm going to do that. Let me look right here. I have courses calendar. I don't know. It's okay. Oh wait, modules. Let me see. I have module 1. Maybe it's here. Let me look. Session 1, and that's it. No, wait. Maybe I have it all now.
When we met last week, I hadn't published everything.
Okay.
So you should have most everything now.
Through module 8, right?
Yes.
Okay, then I do have that. Do you guys have a minute now, or do you want me to call you back? This is I missed last week, and so I'm wondering. I'm a little bit confused between Canvas versus.
So if you missed last week, one, you're just going to want to make sure you're completing. So when we leave here, we are all going to make sure we've completed unit 4 and unit 5 on the fundamentals. So
Okay.
Fundamentals has 13 units. You walk through them, you watch videos, you listen to teachers, you read text, you try some stuff out, you do free open-ended responses, and then you do a quiz at the end that tells you your score back. And that's going to prepare us for our exam. And then we come to Canvas where we can post any questions and ask any questions. And so if you miss the first session, what you're going to want to go to is you're going to go to the pages. We're at education level 1. I'm going to go past module 1 because that's just the welcome logistics. And I'm going to session 1 because that's the one you missed. And you can go to the recording of session 1.
Okay.
And then you can watch the recording right there and it will cover everything. And the
cool.
Session, and again, that was kind of just the whole course. So watching that, you'll get a good understanding of everything you need to do.
Okay, cool. That helps a lot.
No problem.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
One of the things, one last question in the chat was about the test. Remember that you do not need to take the test to get your clock hours. What you do need to do to get your clock hours is complete the modules and give us proof that you've completed the modules. And we'll talk about that as we get closer. The test is optional. It really is. So you do not need to take the test. I saw that we had a raised hand.
Yeah, Nancy.
Yes. I'm on the Canvas right now, and earlier I was able to see you guys' email, the link to this session today. I'm just trying to figure out where to email the image, the screenshots of completing the fundamentals 1, 2, and 3.
That will be in a form at the very end. We're going to open up an attestation form where you actually sign for all the completed hours. And
So
so
we'll just send them all to you at once.
exactly what you will be sending in is you'll say, hey, I've completed all 7 live sessions, or, you know, at least watched all of the videos, covered everything. And then you will also be uploading a screenshot of all 13 units completed. We will be sending our Zoom attendance over along with some other items, and then they'll be dealing with the clock hours. Now, your clock hours do cost money. Obviously, you'll have to pay for those clock hours on your end, but we'll be managing all of that. So the only thing you really need to worry about is once you have all 13 units done, to screenshot that, and then just participating in all the modules and the live sessions.
Ethan, can you go to the fundamentals real quick and show that?
The fundamentals?
Yes.
Yes. So an easy way to get there too is you can just go to our pre-work session 1, and please follow this link right here. And there's the link.
Okay, so when we get to this point, you're going to scroll down and you'll see, actually I want to be on the front page.
Oh.
What we'll want is a screenshot of those check marks.
Yep.
Those are the check marks that are most important. And so just send us a screenshot as you, at the end, when you go through those 13 modules.
So you can click on.
Kelly, I'm sorry I muted you. I didn't know if you were asking a question or if that was just a hot mic. So feel free to unmute yourself.
Well, my problem is that I was up till like 12:30 last night going through them on my desktop or my laptop. And then I've been trying, like during breaks, to go through on my iPad at work. I could not find my fundamental pages like I was finding on my laptop. Is it possible that they are not showing up on the mobile devices?
That is a good
I
question.
haven't tried to access mine on my iPad or a mobile device. That's a good question. I'd have to look into that.
Okay, because like I said, I was not, I know when I was in the car last week, when I first started, I could not find them. But I did, like I said, I was able to find them on the laptop, but I was not able to find them on a mobile device. So that may be why some of our friends are not finding them.
Yeah, I'll definitely test that out right now.
Okay.
Email this link to myself, and then I'll open it up on my phone. Kimberly, you have a question. Thank you, Kelly, for pointing that out too.
I just am thinking of a time frame here, and if I'm remembering right from last week, if I remember right, you guys said that when this course is completed, you guys will give us a code to, if we choose to take the test. We have 8 days in which to take that test with that code. Am I off on that?
We will not
We
give
will
you a code.
not be giving you a code.
You are going
Okay,
to log into, we will post a website and it's right next to the fundamentals website. You go to a third party, it's, Google owns it, but you go to a whole nother testing site. That's where once you pay your $10, put in your credit card information, what they send you is a code. And then you
Okay.
log into that platform, type that code in, and you have 8 days to log into that platform and type that code in.
okay. So,
When you type that code in, you start your test.
okay, good. All right. So that makes better sense. So to give another like expansion of time, and I'm on a bit of a time crunch that I didn't realize I was going to have to continue my for my clock hours here. So I am in the process of completing 58 clock hours by the end of May. And if yeah, a little bit nuts. If I want to, like in June or July, attempt to take that Google test, that link will still be accessible here in our Canvas that I can come back to and click on, or will I be like null and void by that point? Because there's no way I'm taking it before the end of June.
You'll be
All you need to do is you can go in and Google certification test, and it'll walk you through the process. It'll take you to the right site. It'll talk you through getting registered. You can take the test at any time. It is not tied to the clock hours that we have here.
Perfect. Okay, that's all I needed to know is if that link to get to that expired. But if I can just Google that, then I got that.
Yep. And don't purchase it until you want to take the test. So until June, July, when you're ready to take the test and you feel comfortable, and then you can always come back to the Canvas course and review, what we talked and rewatch the videos. But once you're comfortable, then make the purchase. They'll shoot you the code and then you can take it. And
Perfect.
everyone, we are beyond our time, so feel free to leave. I know we have people leaving. Thank you so much for hanging out. If there are any more questions, we're going to hang out and answer all the questions. So if there are any more, please feel free to unmute yourself. Lori, I see you're unmuted. Oh, okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you all very, very much. We will see you same time next Thursday. And we'll have a little task for you next Thursday so we can really dive into it. And that's the biggest thing. Biggest piece of advice is mess around with Google products, right? Build a website real quick. Use a Google site. Check out the blogs, right? Do a Google call. Have fun with it. Experiment with it, because that's going to make you the most comfortable and prepare you the most for the test.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to stop the recording.